Someone's going to go for 2 and get it at some point.
It's 1:42 in the morning.
Yeah, that's all right. Number 1. Shocker. Iron.
Man, give me the Trojans.
There we go.
Welcome into Overtime, presented by Perfection One. Dewey Dailey along with John Bruce for this week's show, episode 44 of the pod.
Yeah.
Now we're moving along. We're creeping a little bit. Actually, we are at the halfway point after this week in the high school football season. A lot of the volleyball teams are getting through their first trip around their leagues and conference play, so we are getting right around that middle ground in the fall sports season.
Yeah, it's been a fun fall sports season so far. We've been doing some traveling and whatnot, so we haven't been as locked in as normal, but we're almost to the halfway point. I'm sure this weekend you'll be completely locked in on the football season, right?
100%.
Yeah, you're definitely going to be at our game on Friday. And,
I'll be a lot closer than I was to the last one I did do. The last one,
me too.
Last one I was 8 hours away. Now I'll only be about 10 minutes. So.
Yeah, you can come visit after you guys do square dancing or whatever. And,
whatever we do. And
you know what's crazy about a Friday afternoon wedding? I was kind of making fun of it earlier, but then I remembered one of my good friends from high school also got married on a Friday afternoon, and I couldn't go to it because we were covering a game. It was last year.
Seriously?
Yeah, it was just like, well, but it was also like in Columbus, and actually it might not even be that close, but yeah. So Friday afternoon weddings. I guess it's not a Saturday during college football because people love.
I'd honestly rather it was.
My sister got married on October 3rd, 1995.
MLB Players Union sues DraftKings and FanDuel for using name and likeness without permission.
Nice. Yeah, not surprised.
Welcome into the show for this week.
But what I was going to say is my sister got married in 1995. Ohio State beat Penn State that day, and my brother was like flashing up like what the score was to my dad during the wedding because he had a mini TV, which now you'd have your phone. They almost made it a year.
Nice.
Yeah.
Almost.
Yeah.
All right. We'll go ahead and jump straight into the headlines coming off of last week. And we'll start off with Gracyn Clark, just a sophomore down at Gallia Academy. We're going to be talking about volleyball in the OVC. We try not to talk, especially with like digs and assists, about 1,000 just because of how common it is. But for Clark, 1,000 assists halfway through her sophomore season? That's pretty uncommon.
And then when I dug some more into that team, it's even crazier. They're 9-3, 6-1 in the OVC. Their only loss was to Fairfield. I believe it was 4 sets early in the season. So, as you mentioned, Gracyn Clark, only a sophomore. Over 1,000 career assists already, which is insane. Which means staying healthy will definitely be in the state record book, because I would guess she'll get over 2,500 would be my guess at least, which when we get more into the craziness of that team here in a second, it may be even more. So the Blue Angels have one upperclassman. They have no juniors, one senior. That senior plays in every set, but isn't one of their main 3 hitters. Their main 3 hitters are also sophomores, and Ryan Dunn, Abby Clark, and Aubrey Frazier, who are all over 100 kills already on the season. So they're 9-3 to start. One of their losses is South Webster, who we'll talk about later, is outstanding as well. Man, they're only going to get better. I mean, they play multiple freshmen as well. This is a team to watch for, and maybe if we didn't know about Gracyn Clark getting to 1,000 assists already, maybe we don't know that how young and talented that team is. That's just crazy. Only one upperclassman at all, and then and that's the type of team where let's say someone, South Gallia, River Valley, somebody that's talented at one of those schools that maybe sees, they're going to be really successful. They may pick up somebody along the way. Maybe they have a really talented 8th grade group too. Who knows? But watch for Gallia Academy. Next Tuesday, which we'll probably talk about a little bit next week on the show. Next Tuesday, they have a rematch at Fairfield on the 24th. that will more than likely decide who's going to win the OVC, if it's going to be Fairland straight up or possibly a split between Fairland and Gallia Academy. But yeah, Gracyn Clark, already 1,000 career assists, just absolutely insane through 1.5 years of high school volleyball. I mean, they've only played 12 matches.
Right.
And, I know they play at least 20. So you're just going to keep adding on throughout the year as well. So I'm excited to follow her career and see what she can end up with.
And we'll stick on the hardwood for another milestone. This one a little bit more significant, a new school record at the School of Beauty, I believe.
Yes, the School of Beauty
is
McClain.
What the warm-up shirt said a few years ago. They may still say that.
Yeah, it's somewhere in their fight song or their alma mater, one of the two. And Coach Joby Stewart took it. I'm sure it was already talked about before, but once he got there, they threw it on the shirts, and and that's when. And speaking of then, would be
we'll talk about Kylea Toney, 643 kills and counting for the senior, now the all-time kills leader in school history. And we were talking a little bit about how she presumably has some relation to Kendall Toney, who was a part of the last really good McClain basketball team.
And they were the first ones with the School of Beauty shirts too. Yeah. So I mean, anytime you get a school record at a bigger school like McClain, that's impressive. And I feel like volleyball stats have been they've kind of grown throughout time, and so they've kind of evolved a little bit. So it's significant anytime you can break a school record, especially a sport that you've been playing for, girls sports in Ohio. They've had state championships for nearly 50 years now. So you would presume that McClain's played volleyball for close to 50 years. So anytime that you can do that, it's really impressive. So shout out to her for being able to break their school record, and I would guess would just keep adding on to it throughout the year as well.
Yeah, I was going to try to look up what she was at right now, but they do not have their stats updated on Max Reps. But they're currently 5-9. That's fourth. They're 2-2 in the FAC, so they're kind of in that middle ground. With Chillicothe is the only other team that's 500 in the league. So they're not the worst, but they're also not the best within league play. As Miami Trace has kind of taken the top spot. As they're one of the more filled out teams, not just in the FAC but in the area. And then we talked about that Hillsboro game last Thursday as being a good one in the conference as well. And then you have Chillicothe, McClain, and then Jackson and Courthouse are the bottom two there.
Well, and you mentioned Miami Trace, where we have games we're going to recap and whatnot. That's not even, it's not mentioned that Miami Trace and Hillsborough game because it was over so quickly. The two games that we previewed last week that we thought were going to be big time volleyball matches just weren't super competitive. Right. So really impressed with what Miami Trace was able to do, and maybe McClain behind Toney can pull an upset off. If not over Miami Trace, maybe over Hillsborough or Chillicothe that would set them up well for tournament play as well. Hey, this is kind of moving on, but Saturday, when the little bit of service I had whenever I was down at Lynchburg-Clay, I started to look into the tournament stuff.
Like how the divisions are set up?
Yeah, have fun. We're going to have a lot of fun talking about that.
Why?
Because it is confusing. So
Shane Combs, he had sent me a little bit of it, but there was just so much writing. I was like, oof. I didn't even really look at it a whole lot, but
yeah, it's gonna be interesting. I'll tell you what.
We'll be where the matchups are at.
Yeah,
that's what I'll say.
If the Wheelersburg boys soccer team doesn't make it to a regional final, I will be very surprised because they get two teams out in that side, and probably the second and third best are Gallia, who's probably the second best, and then Untitled, who this is not one of the better Untitled teams currently. They have a chance to be pretty good at the end. But yeah, it's kind of wild because then it's going to come down to one game to make it to state. So I'm excited. We'll see. I'm just interested to see how the tournament's going to be, where the games are going to be.
Right.
like volleyball where we've been able to go to Logan.
Yep.
Are we still going to be able to go to Logan? Or is it going to be like one game at Logan, one game at Waverly, one game at OU Chillicothe? Like, it just...
That'd be wild.
Yeah, just trying to find places to play at this point. And
Play at Southeastern.
Yeah.
I mean, any of those gyms that can hold a solid amount
Jackson?
of people. Yeah, Jackson's probably the best option,
Yeah.
I would say.
But yeah, so it's just, that's something we'll talk about more coming up. But the tournaments are very different than what they were. I mean, still technically like kind of the same idea, but more
there's
divisions.
More divisions, more tournament, more medals to be handed out.
Yeah.
So we'll ramp up the headlines talking about Aaron Walters. I believe the exact record was 5,008. But now the all-time leading passer in Logan Elm Brave football history, over 5,000 passing yards in his career. Now a senior at Logan Elm. We'll get into them a little bit more in depth later, but a big win for the Braves over an MSL opponent in Circleville, which that game was a little bit up for grabs. I think it was a 1-point spread, and they took care of business with a multi-score win over the Tigers. It's been... Since we've been doing the podcast for the last 2 years, I've been nothing short of impressed with Walters. And I'm assuming at 5,000 he probably played as a sophomore and maybe even played a little as a freshman. But just from the 2 years that I have kind of been focused on his career, I mean, 9-1 last year?
9-1 finished 9-2, yeah.
Right. So, and they're off to a good start this year as well. So, I mean, they're 3-1 with
right
the
now.
loss to a Miami Trace team that we hold to a pretty high standard. So they're off to a good start and a good way to kick off league play with Circleville.
Yeah,
Backyard brawl.
And for Logan Elm, before Walters got to high school, they had some years of struggle. They were over 500 in 2015. They went 6-4. Then 4-6, 1-9, 1-9, 2-8, 5-5. Then when Walters was a freshman, they went 3-7. Then presumably whenever he was handed the reins as a sophomore, 8-3, then 9-2, and now, like you said, 3-1 already this year. So since he's been, taking the snaps over there, and I almost said Laurelville, but I don't even know if technically they have students from Laurelville. I think they do because Tyler Hart, I think, is from Laurelville, and we love
Big
Tyler.
brave guy.
Yeah, he was a big brave guy. So, for Logan Elm, they've had a lot of success the last couple of seasons, and it's good for them to continue it. And a lot of it goes because your signal caller is one of your best in school history. It's maybe they play a slightly more up-tempo style, so maybe you don't compare them so much to a running quarterback that they may have had before, because, like 2008, they had a 12-1 season. I just were outstanding. But he's the best thrower of the football that Logan Elm's ever had, and that's a pretty good thing to have on your resume, as he's definitely going to be able to carry over next year and play at some level in college football. And I don't know what level. I don't know,
For who?
Yeah,
We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. I have very high confidence that he's going to be playing somewhere next year. And definitely we'll be getting in the rotation in a couple years as well.
It's just wild to me that he was in 8th grade when I was a senior, and in the face, he probably looks older than me, honestly. It is what it is.
Yeah, some people don't have the baby face when they're 22.
I know.
Like Taylor
Big
Swift.
birthday guy.
Let's go. Happy birthday, dude, dog.
That's what we're talking about.
Yeah.
All right.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I made it.
You made it.
One more year.
Yeah. One more trip around the sun. You should put that on Instagram. Make that your caption. Don't do it, please.
All right. We'll move on to the recaps. I had Logan Elm at second, but should we just...
Yeah, let's just go to that.
We'll just do them first. It was our first National Bank game of the week, second one in 4 weeks for Logan Elm, and they're now 2-2 and FNB game of the week. So congrats to them. With their schedule, I can't imagine they would get another one, as most of those are either going to be SVC games or if Chillicothe had a home game or something. But as we mentioned previously, Logan Elm 35, Circleville 17. We just talked about Aaron Walters, over 5,000 passing yards, the all-time leader in school history. didn't necessarily have to do much in the scoring column. Still threw for $177, but this was all about Michael Bach. 30 totes, 166 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns for Bach. I think the only reason he didn't get player of the game or whatever, FNB,
because
player
he
of
had
the
already got
game,
it.
player of the game of the week was because he got it in week 1. But I'd say this one was probably a little more deserving. I don't remember his exact stat line from week 1, but I don't think it was quite.
It wasn't as wild.
166 and 4 touchdowns. But for Circleville, the guys we talked about on the previous episode are kind of the ones that showed out for them, and they were hanging around for a bit. Hudson Phelan threw for 234 and 2 touchdowns, and it was Nunn Gester and Jack Klein that were on the other end of those receiving touchdowns. So, it in terms of who was involved, we got it right, but I think this game was a little more spread out than we may have thought going in. And as we said, it was only a 1-point spread on Fantastic 50. So, and you can do whatever you want with that. I mean, we're talking about high school football here, so it's a little more volatile than
I'll tell you what,
college
though,
and NFL. But
by week 6, it's usually pretty good though. Like he posted like what the numbers were this week, and it was like they were like 85% right on the picks, and a lot of them were within the 10-point range and whatnot, because you just kind of never know. But the K&B player of the game was Justin Markham, and this is probably why
I said FNB. It is K&B.
Yeah, K&B. That's I almost said FNB as well, but it's Kingston National Bank. Yes. Justin Markham from Logan Elm had a blocked punt return for a touchdown.
Yeah.
Recovered a fumble and also had a sack in a game, and that's really the difference right there, because
It's a momentum shifter.
yeah, it's a 3-score game. One score happens on that punt return. Another, let's say they score after the fumble recovery. Like those plays are winning plays, and that's ultimately what helped make the difference for Logan Elm to push them to 3-1 and knock Circleville down to 3-1, even though they had an outstanding start to the season.
I hate to say it, but unfortunately, unless something crazy happens, I don't think anybody in the MSL is beating Bloom Carroll.
Mm-hmm.
That's just kind of how it is right now. So I'm kind of interested to see how Circleville does against some of these other MSL teams, specifically Fairfield Union, who had a pretty solid showing against Fairland, which was still one of the craziest matchups.
Mm-hmm.
That and Chillicothe and West are 2 games. You're how did these two even match up? But Circleville and Fairfield Union and not both, but Liberty Union and all those other MSL teams, I'm kind of interested to see how.
I'll tell you what, Circleville's got a weird couple road trip here.
Yeah.
At Amanda this week.
And Amanda.
I'll
be interested.
I'm really interested in that one, because Amanda off to a 2-2 start, that big upset over Untitled. But I mean, they lose by 25 to Bloom Carroll, but that's probably going to happen to most teams. They beat a very improved Adena team, lost to Linda McKinley to start the year, so I think we didn't think
that was weird.
Yeah. Their first 2 weeks were weird, because with the Linda McKinley loss, it looked like they're not going to be very good at all. Then they beat Untitled, and it looks like, oh, maybe they are. And so this week will be interesting to see them as Amanda hosts Circleville. That's a game we haven't really talked much about. Then Circleville goes to Marietta, who's off to a 3-1 start, but that is a heck of a road trip.
How far is that?
Marietta is 2 hours from Chillicothe, so
Oof.
At least 2:15.
Yeah, we're not going there.
No. That should be a really good game though, because I mean, right now it's picked as a 2-point game, almost a pick 'em. But yeah, that's a heck of a road trip. But yeah, you mentioned Bloom Carroll. Right now they're projected to win each game in the league by 15 or more, with Fairfield Union being the closest. And Fairfield Union, you mentioned them. I mean, they knocked off Hamilton Township, won 34-17. It was projected to be a 5-point game for Hamilton Township, but I don't know if we expected that at all.
All right.
Yeah, so Fairfield Union is definitely a team to watch for, especially with how good their soccer team's been, because sometimes that can interfere with how good your football program is. Because
a la Menford Falcons.
Yeah, because Fairfield Union's not a small school, but they're not like a huge school, so you are splitting some athletes there, and they've done a good job, really good job in soccer, and they're still solid in soccer, but it looks like they're starting to turn their football program around as well.
Do you think that if This is kind of crazy to
I'm
say.
excited for this.
And it's not really anything. We're going to move on to our next game. So we're done with Logan Elm Circleville. Do you think Minford's soccer team would beat Minford's football team in a 7-on-7? Not a football game,
Okay,
a 7-on-7. Because they have the quarterback from last year. They have Montgomery, who's probably one of the top athletes in the school.
Who gets Kaiser?
Nobody.
See, that's where if you can get if
Kaiser was on the side, Kaiser's the goalkeeper.
Maybe if you said the players that don't play,
the players that don't play football versus the players that play football in a 7-on-7.
Yeah, and at a school like at Minford size, you got to get those guys.
You need all of them.
Like the ones that aren't playing anything.
Here's what I will say though: the football team gets the younger Cottle kid.
Okay. So
it's the football team plus the younger Cottle versus everybody else in the school that doesn't play football. So that's Montgomery. I guess Shoemaker is on the team that plays because I think he may have got hurt. Oh, he just didn't play? Okay, well, I guess he's on the... Yeah. So it's pretty much their basketball team plus Cottle against their football team with the younger Cottle.
Yeah. And, I'm pretty sure Kid Glockner could go get the ball.
I mean, they have so many athletes, and not just athletes. So many. I mean, Cottle is one of the top track guys in the state.
Yeah.
And I mean, Montgomery's going to go to Division II to play basketball. I think we said Kaiser is as well, and Shoemaker's extremely athletic. And we didn't even. I mean, we're talking about Glockner as well. So, I mean, they've got some guys. They've got some dudes that just don't play football, and that's just how it is. And you can only play the guys that are in uniform. So
hey, but I'll tell you what, they got their first win this week.
They did. Oak Hill.
It's very exciting because, when you got a first-year coach and a lot of guys don't come out and play, it can be really tough. But getting that first win is going to help rejuvenate those younger guys and get a little more energy into it because it's probably still going to be a long year for them, but at least you get the win.
I'm not sure who else they could beat.
That's kind of
Northwest Valley. That's kind of who you're looking at because Waverly and Wheelersburg. Although Waverly and Valley were neck and neck. We won't talk about that game specifically, but we might check into it in the power rankings. Let's go ahead and wrap up the recaps.
Well, what I was going to say is
to toss something else in.
I mean, right now Minford is significant underdogs in the rest of their games. They do have Northwest this week. I think traditionally that's a fairly close game, but Northwest I think is playing better.
Northwest 3-1, aren't they?
Yeah. Now, if they had Megs at home, but they got to go to Megs, that's a terrible trip. Week 8, Minford at Megs.
The SOC too is kind of weird, to where they have their 3 non-conference games, and then they play for Waverly, it's all of your league games, and then you play Mount Healthy week 10. But for for Wheelersburg, you play 2, and then you go to Harvest Prep. Mm-hmm. So I think it's kind of. I don't know if I would like that. I feel like I would rather just play all 4 in a row and then just play the rest of your league games. But
and it is, it is kind of funny when you look at how each team schedules, because you got, no offense to South Gallia, Oak Hill's got South Gallia as their replacement game in there. Wheelersburg has Harvest Prep.
Yeah. Well, it's just, do you want to challenge yourself or do you want to win a game?
Yeah.
I mean,
and Waverly's got Mount Healthy. But you also have to look at where your program is,
right?
And what are they going to be able to do?
I'm not sure if Waverly has beaten Mount Healthy since they started playing them.
Mm-mm. No, but then this is probably the best Mount Healthy team too.
Oof.
So
what's the spread there? Can you pull that up?
23.
It's
at home.
I would honestly right now take Mount Healthy to cover that, just
probably.
based on what I've seen from Waverly the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, Mount Healthy is 3-1. The fighting what animal? What flying animal?
Is it alliteration or no?
Mm-mm. None of that is alliterative.
I feel like the Fighting Hawks is too basic.
It is too basic. These things I didn't know they fought.
You didn't know they...
No, these things I didn't know fought.
The Fighting Geese.
That's a good one. Owls.
The Fighting Owls.
Because I thought owls just kind of hang out and then they just swoop in and get whatever.
Just pick on people that aren't the same size as them.
Yes, as you should.
All right, let's move on to our second and last recap from last week. game we were at down on the west side at the Rock, one of my favorite stadiums in Southern Ohio. Portsmouth West 18, Chillicothe 17. West is now 2-2, winning their last 2 games. Chillicothe still looking for that first win, I think, whenever they get into FAC play. I would probably take them over McClain and Courthouse.
Mm-hmm.
I think that Hillsborough game could be interesting as West took down Hillsborough at Hillsborough in week 3, and that's where that game is at.
Hillsborough is going to be very similar to West, and you could tell
Very run heavy.
how tired our Kenneth Hay, shout out Kenneth, our camera guy, pointed out how tired Chillicothe looked at the end of that game against West. And
West up front was very big.
Yeah.
And when the team runs it 40 times, I don't know if they ran it that many times, but 30 or 40 between Bishop and apologies to the rest of the SOC too, but there is another Bishop coming.
And he's a stud too.
Yeah, you're just going to have to deal with that for 3 more years. And I was impressed with Brody Hall as well. I mean, in a limited opportunity, and he's only thrown a pass in 3 games, and I think that was the least he's thrown because he only threw it 5 or 6 times. I thought it was
only threw it 3. It was 3 straight plays.
Oh, that was it.
Yeah,
and I thought, I think he got sacked a couple of times too. But the ball he threw to Bishop up the near sideline, and Bishop turned around and made a great catch. I mean, I think. I don't know. I think Hall could end up because he's only a junior, right? So he's going to get another year, and hopefully we'll break the 3-year streak of a different quarterback every single season for West. And then obviously after this year you're going to lose Mason Parker, but hopefully you can ride on the ground game. You can ride his coattails till the end of the season. And then for Chillicothe, you come up short, like we said. We think they can win some games in the FAC coming up in conference play, but probably one of the most impressive younger cores at the skilled position in the area.
Yeah, you can say Jordan, is it Swanasang?
Jordan Swanasang.
Yeah, he looked really good. He had a jet sweep.
A jet seep.
Yeah, jet seep score. Really dynamic. Carte Ligon, that dude. He's a dude already. He had a 46-yard touchdown.
It's like the second play. Yeah,
called back, but man, he was dynamic. His first touchdown was pretty nasty as well. Those 2 are only freshmen. Just like the FAC is not going to have fun with them as they get bigger and stronger. Because I'm sure the weight room is not. They probably just got introduced to it,
right? And
if they spend a lot of time in it, by the time they're juniors, those guys are going to be like. Kind of look at what Jackson's done. Like Ryan Simons was not very big as a freshman. And then as a sophomore was so much like just that 1 year in the weight room. If those 2 put in the work Ryan Simons did, like Chillicothe is going to be so much better immediately next year because they're going to be dynamic no matter what.
Right.
But yeah, I thought Hammond did a good job at the quarterback spot. They had some injuries to some of their experienced guys coming back.
What was the Sean White?
Smith.
Sean White was that snowboarder, wasn't he? Flying
Smith.
Tomato or whatever.
Yeah,
Sean Smith.
Yeah, Sean Smith was hurt. Don Barron was hurt. Like those are experienced guys that would have helped this team. And maybe they're able to pick up a win on Friday if they are a little healthier. But full credit to West. We didn't even mention that. Yeah, down 14-7
at halftime.
Yeah, 17-7 at the half, down 14-0 early. They come back and score late in the half, and then a beautiful drive led by Hammond to get the Connor Bolin for a 33-yard
impressive kicking.
Yeah,
that game by
both teams made a 30-plus yard field goal. Nobody missed an extra point.
I say with ease, but it was number 44.
It was
for
Detweiler.
Yeah, Detweiler, man. If you didn't see it live, you go back.
I wasn't 100% sure it went.
One of the lowest lining field goals I've ever seen, and he drilled it.
Yeah.
He got it, and that ended up being a huge part in the game. As they only win by 1.
And the big thing with Chillicothe, they're very young. They had a big penalty, a big block in the back on a kickoff return that really put them, like they started at their own 6. They ended up punting, giving West a short field. I think they only had to go 35 yards. They score. And then on the extra point, Detweiler hits the extra point, but Chillicothe jumped off sides, so Coach Gillen rolls the dice.
Offense back out
put the offense back out. Mason Bishop punches it in from 2 yards or a yard and a half out, makes it 18-17, and ultimately they're able to hold on. So ended up penalties really hurt Chillicothe in that game, but man, West really made them pay. And I think that West is going to throw the ball more, but I think in that game they saw,
if you don't have to throw,
we're getting 3-4 yards a carry. Let's just keep hammering it. We don't have to throw it. We don't have to take the risk. But I'm sure what they saw in the passing game and only the 3 passes, they had to feel pretty good about because all 3 were thrown well.
I was absolutely impressed with Hall and the limited time he had. The one thing I will say about Hammond, and it may be by design, but like on most of his passes, there was like no drop back, and that may just be part of it. But I mean, it was kind of a catch and then like a pivot, and then he would throw. I just feel like if you drop back, you can kind of gives you room to kind of crow hop into your throw a little bit. I think he had the one bad pick where he hit Schism in the back of the helmet. That there's nothing you can do.
But that was Anthony Bishop.
Right,
picked that one off too. So it's I think
Juan Miller had a pretty good game, a very good game as well.
Yeah,
3
I think
catches for I probably had 70-ish yards.
It was close to 70. Yeah. So I think the big thing probably there is the line play, because I know one of the linemen for Chillicothe was a running back in middle school. So I mean, like you're moving people to newer positions. And those 2 really well coached teams, and it was fun. Really good competitive night. The crowd got into it as the game went on. It was not super active early. They're going to need that a little bit more this week when Waverly comes down to the Rock, though. Yeah,
one of the best atmospheres. We've been down there twice now. I don't think I can say I've had a bad trip down to the Rock. It's always a lot of fun. And like I said, one of my favorite stadiums. All right, are you ready to go over some power rankings?
Yeah.
First, we're going to go ahead and announce that. If you didn't already know, Overtime is presented by Perfection One. The Perfection One Collision Center has served Southern Ohio families and student-athletes for over 30 years. They're one of the oldest collision centers, serving Pickaway, Ross, and Pike counties, featuring state-of-the-art equipment, technology, and manufacturer certifications. Certifications may vary by location. Perfection One, we meet by accident, but are highly recommended.
Nice. Yeah, so you mentioned they're one of the oldest, but I believe in Pike County they're also one of the newest, as I believe they're
the sheriff's station on the plateau going in.
Yeah, and you get to see the "We Meet by Accident" on the way in, and now if you don't see that sign, either you're looking dead straight ahead or you're on your phone. Don't be on your phone, or else you're going to be visiting Perfection One earlier than you're hoping for. But we appreciate the sponsorship, and I know they do outstanding work. I hopefully don't have to go back to them anytime soon, because
Did you go to them?
I have before, like not this past time. This past time was
Monroe Collision. Who was it?
Who was it?
Probably just somebody default family. Body
it was
shop.
Monroe, actually.
Was it?
I had to go to Jackson.
Oh, I know they had one down there.
Yeah, I had to. Yeah.
Don't talk about it.
No, it was. I got hit on Bridge Street in Chillicothe. I had to drive 40 minutes to Jackson, and then they didn't actually put my order in. So I had to drive multiple times down there, which, I mean, it's not a bad drive down to Jackson, but when you get rear-ended, and your car sounds like it got rear-ended. It's not fun to do that drive multiple times, but they did a good job with it. So I mean,
all right. We can go ahead and go over power rankings. Not a whole lot of movement, as in your top 10, nobody lost. And in my top 10, my number 10 team lost, so I just made a quick flip. But there was a little bit of movement.
Hey, I got some people got on me this week about...
and I don't blame them.
I don't either.
I'm just trying to pull up the picture of last week. So I haven't made the actual graphic, so I got to see where everybody moved. Do you want to go first, or do you want me to go first?
I'll go first. Let's go. So my number 1, shocker here, Ironton Fighting Tigers. They just continue to... I don't know how good
they played on Saturday.
Yeah, I don't know how good these out-of-state teams are, but they are just...
New York team.
Yeah, just obliterating them. This week, though, things get, what I presume, way tougher in Ohio, because they got Bishop Hartley, who's one of the top programs in Central Ohio. And, that's we aren't going to preview that game, but that's a game. If you are in Ironton, you should go watch on Friday night. Bishop Hartley, outstanding. I know they've got a couple big time recruits as well, but Ironton has been running away from teams so far through 4 weeks, and this might be their biggest challenge yet. So Ironton would have to lose that game by about 90 for me to consider dropping them, but I'm probably still not going to right now. My number 2, Jackson. Really impressive. Like, we're halfway through the first quarter, and the other night I see the score, and so I had to give a score update. I think it was the only score update we did of the entire night, but it was like Jackson was up like 35-0 in the first over Western Brown, who's a really good team. So, really impressive by Jackson. Fairland stays the course, still undefeated. Wheelersburg gets their first win. They will stay 4th for me. And that was, I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was on Twitter like, oh, this is wild. They're 0-3. I had said to Dewey in a text, like, oh, just imagine what's going to happen when they do win, because they played a lot better.
You should have put them up at 1 just because.
But
over 2 teams they beat or lost to.
Yeah, Wheelersburg, I still think that they're still one of those really, really good programs.
I get it.
Yeah, so we'll see how they do, continuing as they play a Valley team that I would argue is the best 0-4 team in the state.
Valley? Oh,
Yeah.
100%. I agree.
Yeah. So we'll see how they do this week. Number 5, I got Miami Trace. Moved up one spot. I know that they lost to my number 6 team in Waverly, but that was week 1. I feel like the teams are kind of moving in different paths at this time. Waverly has not played very well the last couple of weeks. They got a chance this week at the Rock to maybe switch this back around. Like, in all honesty, if Miami Trace doesn't play well against Western Brown and Waverly puts up a good showing against West, I would be okay switching them back. I'm just not doing ties for now. We might see later. Number 7, I've got Paint Valley. They just keep rolling. Their schedule.
They have a very back heavy.
Very back heavy schedule. But right now they are rolling. 6-6 win this past week over Southeastern, which I think we all expected, but at the same time it's just
maybe not that much.
Yeah,
that's a lot.
Putting up a lot of points. Number 8, I've got Logan Elm. Did I move that at all? I don't think I did.
Logan Elm, no. The only thing that happened was Waverly moved
down 1
to 6, and you just flip-flop Miami Trace and Waverly. Everybody else stayed the same.
Yeah, so then Logan Elm at 8, really impressed with that win over Circleville. If Paint Valley didn't do what they did scoring wise, I think that was probably going to be a switch there. But then Portsmouth I've got at 9. That game was we had talked about that in the preseason, and then we noticed the scores with Gallia.
We were almost there.
Yeah, so we switched out of that as a possible game, and it was the right decision, obviously. But man, they really impressive with Portsmouth right there. Gallia obviously is not in very good shape right now. Hopefully they'll get things turned around quickly, but right now it's rough. Then Uni had a 35-0 win over Westfall, so they stay in my 10 spot. Penalties. Got to control penalties, because that's something that they should win pretty handily this week, but then they've got Piketon in week 6, and that's when penalties can rear their ugly head if things don't turn around.
Yep. So
I do want to throw out Isaac Coy for Uniota was 20-23 for 5 scores in that game, and was just really impressive.
That's a crazy touch. 20% 20% touchdown percentage on completion. That's kind of wild.
Yeah, and Caden Cartwright had a 72-yard touchdown.
He only scores when he's
like his
100 yards away.
Yeah,
his yards per catch is probably so. He has like. I can't. I can only imagine. It's
over 30 at this point.
Yeah. That's crazy. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to my power rankings. Not a lot of movement, but more movement than what you had, just kind of by default. So, Ironton, Jackson, Fairland still the top 3. Fairland, one of the few remaining undefeated teams in our coverage area. I had Waverly and Miami Trace 4-5 last week. They're 4-5 this week again. It's just Miami Trace is now 4, and Waverly is at 5. Waverly, just you lose to Uniota in week 3. I bumped them down to 4, and then you I don't want to say they almost lost, but it wasn't a very impressive showing against Lucasville Valley, who still hasn't won a game, but as we said, one of the more impressive teams. And it sounds like they're starting to get another back involved in Anthony Aaron, who had one carry for a touchdown in week 1, and we were very impressed with him. So I think with McNeil and Aaron in the backfield, you have McNeil, who is not as winded because he's not toting the ball 40 times, and you have Aaron, who we just in the limited time we've seen him think pretty highly of him. So I think those two combined create a pretty strong backfield. And I think
Wachtell's
I was going to say, I think Wachtell is doing very well under center, and he's very mobile as well as wide receiver for the first few years of his career, and had to move over to quarterback with Powell not playing.
Well, and then that pretty much most of that Valley team's back next year. I know they'll have a different quarterback, but yeah, so they're just going to be getting better and better throughout. And probably not winning this week, but yeah, they're going to be fun to watch the last 5 weeks of the season.
And then moving down to the bottom half of my power rankings, Paint Valley still at 6, Wheelersburg at 7, keeping Untitled at 8, Logan Elm at 9, and Circleville losing to Logan Elm. They were in last week. I bumped them right back out. Portsmouth for now is back in. 2 teams I want to shout out, Eastern Pike and Athens. Those 2 teams are right on the bubble. They're both 4-0. For Eastern, the only thing I have about Eastern is I just need to see a little more. I need a more, I can't say convincing win because they've handled their opponents very easily. Kind of looking at the Notre Dame game in week 8. I know that's a little ways away, but that's kind of honestly the first big test for them as they look to win what I would believe to be their 3rd straight. I think they had a 3-way tie a couple years ago in that conference with Green, Notre Dame, and Eastern, and then last year.
That was crarise because it was they won their last 5 games or something to get in, and
yeah, they were 0-5 and then went 5-0 their last half. So they've under with head coach Tomlinson, I think with what they graduated last year, not very many people expected them to be quite as good, but it seems like they haven't missed a beat. I think the kid's name was Morton, graduated last year, and they throw Eric Manley in there, and I cannot remember all of their players' names because we only had them the 1 week, but I think they brought back one of their tailbacks, and then I think the younger Warner is back, and I think Boston Webb is another guy that was there, so they've got some returners. And then Athens is also off to a 4-0 start. Don't know as much about them yet, but they're definitely showing up on the radar as it stands.
Yeah, and with Athens, that was something we literally talked in the pre-show, what should we do with Athens? Because we don't do how much do we cover Athens?
We got to ask Carson.
Yeah, so Carson would be able to help us out on that a little bit. But yeah, they've got Vinton County, so that's kind of a show me game there. They're a heavy favorite on that right now, but Vinton County looked really good last week against Meigs. So tough sledding coming up for Athens as they've got Vinton County and Warren coming up over the next 2 weeks. So if they get through that, I would say they're probably going to be in both of our top 10s for sure. For show.
Yeah, and I know going back to last year when Brock used to do the power rankings, I know at one point Eastern and they don't play Notre Dame until week 8. And just a quick, if any Eastern people watching, good chance we end up down at Eastern Pike for that week 8 game against Notre Dame. They were 7-0, and Brock wasn't putting them in the power rankings. And I think even we kind of were like, Brock, what are you doing? They're 7-0. And now that we do these each week, you kind of understand it because there are teams like Portsmouth who have shown a little bit of grit. I really don't think Portsmouth has had a big win yet either, but we've seen them in person, so there's a little bit of bias there. I haven't seen Eastern in person yet, and you could even say the same for Circleville. But the opportunity at the end of this season and our power rankings don't matter. We're 2 dudes sitting in they're not that. It's not the end of the world if you're not in Dewey, Dailey, and John Bruce's power rankings. But the opportunity to get into them is there for Eastern Brown. Now, it's at the back end of the season, but if they finish 10-0, they beat Notre Dame, they make the playoff. They're going to be in there. They're going to be in the bulk of our power rankings, and I just wanted to get that out there.
Yes.
It's tough to rank these teams because at this point in the season, there are so many teams that are 4-0, 3-1, and it's
well, because we didn't even mention, but Wellston, Colgrove, Piketon,
Colgrove and Portsmouth, a game to look out for this week too, because we'll talk about that.
We'll talk about that a little bit, but like there's just so many teams. Like in Circleville dropped out of yours, they're still close-ish on mine.
Yeah,
like
I mean,
you've got
Circleville's
so many.
going to play Bloom Carroll, Hamilton Township, Fairfield Union. I mean,
Well, and then also where it's not like basketball, where 4 weeks of the season we may have been able to get to like 8 different.
games.
See 8 to 10 different
See 2 a
teams,
week.
but now it's you got Friday. we covered 2 games in week 1, but overall it's just there's only so much we can get to. So
Yeah, we got lucky last year. We had that West and Waverly game get pushed back to a Saturday because of our ref shortage. So plenty of opportunity for both teams, Athens and Eastern Pike, to get into our power rankings. Let's go ahead and move on. Preview some of the games coming up in week 5. Not only our KNB, Kingston National Bank Game of the Week, but the game will be live streaming this week. Piketon Red Streaks head up north to take on the Zane Trace Pioneers. And I think preseason, we did this game last year because, we'll be honest, the week 5 slate, not great.
Yeah.
Week 4, 5, and 6 is kind of a dead period.
It's weird because like a lot of leagues are going on, but it's just there's not a lot of great matchups in these 3 weeks. So
you just kind of have to gamble. And that's what we did last week with Portsmouth and Chillicothe. It's like, well, here's 2 teams that, we're probably not going to have an opportunity to get to at any other point in the season. Let's go down there and see what happens. We know they have some explosive players and Ligon, and we talked about Sawana Singh and Parker for West, and we lucked into a good game. And, it was 18, maybe not the highest scoring, but competitive is what we're looking for. And I think this is what we could have here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I think with both squads, I think Zane Trace to start the year wanted to play a little bit more spread and a little bit more like Piketon, but because of injuries again this year, they've kind of had to go more of the traditional Zane Trace that they've had a lot of success with in the past, and it showed out to a 27-6 win last week over Adena, where they did have Gunnar McCullough back for the first time since I believe the second series of the year, and he goes 5 for 11 for 66 yards and a touchdown last week, but they were without Bryce Johnson. He's in a walking boot last week. Is he?
Yeah, that hurts.
How long is he out? Is he able to come back? So health is a big part of this matchup. Bryce Johnson, 41 carries, 228 yards, 4 touchdowns, carrying the ball so far this year. Didn't play in week 4. He was kind of their...
they did get the win, though.
Yeah, they got the win. So
you got to wonder if it's maybe he could have played, but you figure you probably get the win without him, so why take a chance?
Yeah, he's also got 4 sacks on defense as well. Like that, he's one of the best sophomores in our coverage area.
Yeah, he was one of the best freshmen last year. He'll be one of the best juniors next year, and it keeps going. Yeah,
Bryce Johnson, just a stud. So hopefully for us, everyone's healthy and he's able to play. We'll see when Friday night comes. But Silas Stewart has had 64 carries on the year, 328 yards, 4 touchdowns. He did the bulk of the carrying the ball last week, and he's like these dudes. We talked about the Chillicothe guys getting in the weight room. These dudes got in the weight room, and it shows. And it's turned out, they're 1-3, but they've played a really tough schedule so far, and it's probably going to turn out really well for them because that second half, because of how much work they've put into the weight room and whatnot. Aiden Dunn, 23 catches, 249 yards on the year. He has their only receiving touchdown. They haven't thrown the ball a whole lot, but when they have, it's gone to Aiden Dunn. Also, one thing to look for, I mentioned Bryce Johnson with 4 sacks. Blake Brower, only a sophomore, has 6 sacks already through 4 games. So that's, Evan Brower is still there. I can't think of that. Was it Spencer Brower?
Yeah, they graduated.
Yeah, they graduated. Like, they've got the Browers that have come through, and they've been outstanding, especially up front. So he's made a big impact for them so far. So Zane Trace got their first win last week. Last year, they won this game 35-24. They were very shorthanded. They had to just kind of go Wildcat last year, and they were able to do it and got the win. Piketon, though, coming off a 46-0 win over Huntington, led by junior quarterback Luke Gallia. He's 32 of 64 on the season for 650 yards, 6 touchdowns, 2 picks. But also, he's ran 352 yards, ran for 352 yards, over 1,000 yards of total offense for the junior, 6 touchdowns on the ground as well. So he's been dynamic whenever he's had the ball in his hand. Big thing to look for, can Zane Trace slow down Mason Thacker? I would assume that Aiden Dunn is going to be trailing Mason Thacker. Thacker, 18 catches, 359 yards out of the 650 yards receiving that the team has. He's got 4 of the 6 touchdowns as well. Thacker, not very big, but really he's a slot receiver more or less. Does a really good job of moving without the ball and route running. And then he's tough to bring down, even though he's not very big.
Yeah, I wanted to say, like, it seems like the last, I don't know, 7-ish years, like, despite their record, Piketon has just been loaded with skilled guys. They could go 10-0 and win the gold ball. I think they went 11-1 because they won a couple of playoff game or one playoff game. Or they could go 4-6 or go 7-3 and not make the playoffs somehow. They have skilled dudes, and they have for the last handful of years, and they've had a quarterback by the name of Gallia for the last 5-ish years,
maybe 6.
So that makes it a lot easier on a quarterback, especially a young one last year, a sophomore, now a junior for Levi Gallia. Makes it a lot easier when you have some talented guys to throw the ball and to hand the ball off to.
Mm-hmm. So. Yeah, and speaking of handing the ball off too with skilled guys, Buddy Wilson. Big question mark on that. He didn't play the last 2 weeks. 30 rushes, 141 yards, and 2 touchdowns through the first 2 weeks of the season. If he's available, that adds another dynamic to their offense. But Wyatt Savage has been filling in. 21 carries, 174 yards, 3 touchdowns so far in the last 2 weeks for him. If they've got Wilson back, then they may be able to use Savage on the outside. He's got 1 catch for 80 yards and a touchdown. Zach Hanna is a big play guy, averaging over 30 yards on his 4 catches for Piketon as well. So this could be I'm very interested to see how this game goes because Zane Trace, I believe, is playing pretty good defense overall, especially the last few quarters because they got off to a big deficit against Logan Elm and Waverly, and then played really well defensively the last 2 quarters of those games, and then did a good job against North Union on that. Things happen. The 14-8 game.
That was low scoring last year too, wasn't it? Wasn't it something weird?
Yeah, it was. It might have been 10-7 last year, something like that. I know they won on a field goal last year. So, and that honestly could be the difference in this game.
St. Trace lost on 2 field goals last year because they lost to Purcell.
No, they won on a field goal last year.
Oh, they beat North Union last year?
Uh-huh.
I didn't know that. I thought they
that
lost
was their only non-conference win last year.
Did not know that.
But yeah, they lost in the playoffs on a field goal last year.
I thought they had that
for St. Trace, they do have a big advantage in the kicking game. Piketon, it seems like they've been able to make more extra points this year, but they've also been pretty good on the 2-point conversions. So, going to be an interesting game.
They've been doing that for a while. I remember when I played, and even the first year out, I was pretty much the beat reporter or the beat game caller for Piketon. They do not kick PATs. They go for it too.
Yeah.
And, you just got to go 50% to make it worth it. All right. You got anything else on this game?
Should be fun. I'm excited to get out to Kyllicothe.
And that is the game where, I don't know if I said it, but that is the game where we'll be live streaming this week. So.
Yeah, let's pray for things to go well.
Yeah. Hopefully the clock works this week. We may do without it last week. But
yeah. Well, and 2 weeks ago, I tried to run it. Last week was better, even though we had people texting us in the middle of the third quarter that clearly weren't watching and listening to us say that. Yeah. That kind of threw some things off. But yeah, so if we don't have a clock, our apologies ahead of time. We're trying to figure it out. I know Dewey's going to work on it this week. Hopefully, Jacob's able to figure it out.
Jacob will be telling me what to do, or I'll just let him log into the computer, whatever he does.
Yeah, so let's hope because it's not the most expensive piece of equipment that we've paid for, but it's still
like
a piece of equipment.
$300 a year.
It's still a piece of equipment that we paid for that we would like to use.
Technically, not paying for it yet. We're on like a 60-day free trial.
On the
OCR thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So,
no,
all right.
That's why.
We can move on to our next game. We'll talk about Western Brown at Miami Trace as Western Brown looks to wrap up their tour through the Frontier Athletic Conference. They're 3-1, right? Wins over. Actually, I don't even have it pulled up right now. I think they didn't lose to. Oh no, they lost to Jackson. So they beat. Who did they not play? They didn't play McClain. So they beat. So they beat Chillicothe, Hillsborough, and
Courthouse,
in Washington Courthouse.
Yeah, so Hillsborough's a comeback. Chillicothe was the game where they threw for like 500 yards and only scored 38 points.
Yeah. But for Western Brown, they have a really nice website online. It's SBAAC.com, the Southern Buckeye Academic and Athletic Conference. But, they've got some very talented players. Brady Sutton, a senior quarterback, 1,308 yards just through the first 4 games of the season. He's averaging .327 a game. He has 12 touchdowns and 7 interceptions on the season. So it seems like Western Brown is kind of a gunslinging offense. I think this would be a very fun game to go watch in person. Now, the one interesting thing about Western Brown is Lucas Powell, senior wide receiver, team leader in receptions and yards, 35 catches for 360. No touchdowns. He has not caught a single touchdown out of the 12 thrown by Sutton. Now, the next closest in the receiving order is a player with 16 catches for 268, and I think he only had 1. But they had one player on their team that had 1 catch for 9 yards and a touchdown. So the big question for Western Brown is, when will Lucas Powell catch a touchdown? And I know that we don't technically cover Western Brown, even though they're probably closer to us than some of the teams we do cover. I might honestly just go out of my way to track when does when does Lucas Powell finally catch a touchdown? Because he's due. He has 35 grabs. I mean, for 360, he leads the team in both of those. Just hasn't gotten the painted area yet, and maybe that's just not his thing. Maybe he's a smaller guy that, hangs out over the middle, kind of a possession type receiver, or, maybe he just hasn't gotten his yet. We don't know. But for Miami Trace, on the other side of the field, 3-1. They started off 0-1 with that loss to Waverly in week 1. So they've won 3 consecutive games. They've got players everywhere as well. I mean, Trey Robinette, so 2 senior quarterbacks going up against each other. Trey Robinette, not exactly the start he was looking for in week 1 against then what looked to be a pretty solid Waverly defense, but through 4 games, Robinette has thrown for 609 yards. Hasn't thrown a pick, but he's only thrown for 3 he's only thrown for 3 touchdowns. It's been a lot of the ground game for this Miami Trace offense. As a team, they have more rushing yards than passing yards. They have 10 rushing touchdowns, 3 of which are from Robinette, Evan Colgrove with 3, and Julian Baker with 4. The one thing that's not surprising isn't the word to use, but the one thing that I've noticed is how Cooper Enox has kind of become one of the top receivers in our area. He's got 14 grabs for 291 yards, 3 touchdowns on the year. And he's just a junior now. Yeah. The quarterback question is kind of unknown. Well, it's unknown to us. It may be fairly obvious for those at Miami Trace, but we'll see where that goes next year. But just this season alone, the Robinette to Enox connection has been pretty solid, and we got a very good glimpse of that in week 1.
Yeah, Enox is kind of a monster too. Like he's a big, strong dude who, when he gets the ball, is not going to be fun for a DB to take down. So it makes sense that he would be their big play guy right now. They got guys on the outside that can play. As you mentioned, Julian Baker, just really good inside runner. It's a Miami Trace team that can really put up some points, and this could be Miami Trace didn't really do a bad job defending the pass against Waverly. They gave up a couple of big plays, but it was the special teams was the big difference in that one.
They don't have a kicker. Well, they have a kicker, but they don't
kick deep.
They don't kick deep, and Waverly started off every possession at the 40, at their own 40 or further. So when you shorten the field to the most at 60 yards, for Waverly, it's one play. You're one play away from a touchdown.
Yeah, and I think Western Brown has the ability to do that same thing. Yep. So I think this could be a high-scoring game.
I'd take it. I'd take the over. What's Fantastic 50 doesn't do over-unders, does it?
No, they should.
I should.
They might, actually.
You can take a look if you want. But, yeah, this is what I'll say. If I was streaming a game this week, I would probably go to this one because I just think it has the ability to just be a fun game. I mean, a lot of there are guys out there that like the ground and pound stuff. I like that old style football or whatever, but I'm a big air raid guy. So, and I know we just talked about how Western Brown is a little bit more 50-50, I know we just talked about how Miami Trace is a little more 50-50, maybe even leaning a bit towards the run. But, if you get down a couple scores,
they have the ability.
Right, but I'm saying you get down a couple scores, you can't really just run the ball every play.
So Western Brown's given up 39, 22, 20, and 49. So they've scored 42, 56, 38, and then 14 last week with Jackson. So.
Yeah, this is going to be like a 42-35 game or something like that. This is like the over-under would be like
75.
I was going to say like 62 or 3, but yeah, so.
I always go way too high.
If it went over that, that'd be 49, 42, something just ridiculous. That'd be fun to type in. The brand new ticker we have, well, not brand new, but 1 week old ticker we have now. So
yeah, we do have a ticker down there.
Down there, all the
Look,
scores.
I'm pointing there.
There's our game we did. Look right there. There's our game. Portsmouth West and Chillicothe.
There you go. Good job.
And there's Jackson. There's Western Brown's last game. Right there.
Yeah. You did a lot of work on that.
I know.
And there's the Williamsburg Wildcats, like I told you earlier, the W.
Oh, yeah, the other SBAAC team.
Yep.
All right, we done with that game. We're ready to move on to our final game. Let's talk about Portsmouth at Colgrove. I think this is Portsmouth's first, and I say this a lot, but it's kind of true in this case. This is Portsmouth's first big test in the OVC. Right? You take down Gallia last week. We've firmly established that Gallia is very down compared to where they were at last year. They won the league last year, and... Or did they win the league, or did Fairland beat them?
No, I don't remember. Ironton was still in the league.
Well, whatever. I don't care. Who won between Fairland and Gallia? Do you remember? Because that was like a 45-42 game. That game was very high scoring.
Fairland won 40-35.
Yeah. So,
but Gallia only lost to Ironton 27-17. So I mean, yeah, they were very good last year.
And Gallia won a playoff game as well because we were there for that.
That's the loudest speaker.
But for Portsmouth, we've talked about them a lot. They've got a lot of guys to run it around on the ground. Both of the Williams brothers, JT and Cam. Nick Copley was not active when we were there down at Valley, but he was there, but he wasn't. He was in uniform but didn't have pads or anything on. So I'm not sure if that was season ending or maybe if he's back by now. But we saw him get some carries a little bit when he was healthy last year, and he was a good 1-2 punch with Chase Island, who said it a bunch, one of the best players in our coverage area. Didn't see him throw it around a bunch. It's hard to name all the receivers they have, but they've got some guys that can run around and catch the ball as well. And then you talk about Colgrove, you don't know a ton, but you know one name. His name's Caden Murphy, right? I believe now, I can't remember if he's a junior or a senior, but he's one of the two. Ran for 1,432 yards, 20 touchdowns last year. In the game last week, he ran for 3 touchdowns of length, 57, 9, and 30. So this is a big play kind of guy down for the Hornets. This game is at Colgrove, so do with that information what you want. I really don't know who to pick. I don't know what the spread is currently. I would assume Portsmouth is favored.
It's got Portsmouth by 15, but I don't think it's 15.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
Especially with two teams that appear to be relatively run heavy. Like 15 points is like the score would have to be 21-6 to be a 15-point spread, because I don't think. I mean, it's hard. It's hard because you have Murphy on one side, who's a big play guy, seemingly, and you have Chase Highland on the other side, who's another big play guy. He is a junior. That's what I thought.
Yeah.
But this is kind of two very talented running backs in the OVC that are going up against each other. I'm not sure. I guess I could check if we have anybody going. It's at Colgrove, so it wouldn't surprise me if Austin is going to that game.
Or Tyler. One of the two.
Tyler,
because he's down.
Tyler could go. Yeah. Tyler's usually going to the Fairland games,
yeah.
But we'll see. I'm pretty excited to see.
Okay, now if I was making a line on this game, you're gonna love this rationale.
Okay.
They both gave up 37 points to Greenup County. Now, Portsmouth scored 12 more points. Both were on the road. However, Portsmouth also I don't understand the line, because Portsmouth barely escaped Valley and Colgrove beat Valley by 2 scores. So I don't know. I don't get it. I would probably put this at probably like 6.5.
Yeah, I was gonna say this is like a 1 score
Yeah, so I think this is going to be a good game. Let's see how Portsmouth does against the run. Obviously, Caden Murphy is dynamic for the Hornets. And it's just, I think this is going to be a really fun game to follow for whomever is there for us.
Yes. Checking now, I nailed it. Portsmouth at Cold Grove football. Austin Hanna will be there.
Hey.
He's been at Cold Grove 2 weeks in a row.
Man, there is no one in SOSA history who has benefited more from moving to a different college than Austin
had
Hanna.
to get out of here, man, because he wasn't getting the greatest games last year, but
Yeah,
he's getting some. He's going to get some really solid OVC work, and I guarantee you when we do Portsmouth and Fairland at Portsmouth here in a couple of weeks,
yeah,
I would assume Austin will probably be there as well because that's kind of in his wheelhouse.
That'd be my guesstimation as well.
All right. We're wrapping up with football. Time to move on to our volleyball and soccer segments of the show. Do you want to kick things off, or would you like me to kind of highlight what we're going to talk about first?
Let's go.
Because we're going to talk about SVC volleyball.
Yeah, let's go SVC volleyball. You talk about it first.
All right. We're just going to highlight some stuff that has happened. Nothing too specific, but we're going to go over pretty much what has happened the last couple weeks. More or less, Adina has reclaimed their throne as the top team in the SVC. They took down Untitled a few weeks back in 5 sets. Took down Huntington last Tuesday. They're now the only unbeaten team within the league in the SVC. Oh man, sorry. I'm just reading. I'm just reading some stuff on here. Zane,
are you reading our thing?
Yeah.
It's once again someone in our group chat is actually wrong because he's incorrect about that.
Anyway, we'll continue. Zane Trace, a big time 4-set win over Untitled. I don't think that was too expected, but I did say a little earlier on in the season I was surprised how competitive Zane Trace was against Fairfield Union. And I think we're starting to see Zane Trace's program sort of build back towards the top. And Untitled also lost in 3 sets to South Webster, but I think Adina lost in 3 sets to South Webster as well.
It may have been 4, but either way.
South Webster's a tough opponent.
Yeah, South Webster is undefeated for a reason. Yeah,
but more or less, you kind of have Untitled, Huntington, and Zane Trace kind of in that 2, 3, 4 spot. And then Southeastern is also in there as well. Anytime you can bring back the Player of the Year. I know they graduated the Ware girl, but you still have Lockheed. But regardless, Katie Burns, Corinne Day, Kayla Grooms, and I believe the Sowers sisters. And there are a couple other in there that rotate in. They're top of the league once again. And I know they went 5 with Untitled, but that was at Untitled. We'll probably be there for their rematch. I would be more surprised if they didn't finish the league undefeated than if they did.
Yeah, especially because, like you said, they're at home for that. They do have to go to Southeastern on Thursday. It seems like Southeastern's playing better than they were at the beginning of the year. Seems like they've ironed out some issues that may have been there, and they're a team that they had a coaching change. When you have a coaching change, it can take a little longer to get going. And Zane Trace, I think that may have been, a new coach there. She was at Southeastern last year. She's at Zane Trace now. That could maybe make an impact early. Zane Trace also has played a very good non-conference schedule. They took Fairfield Union to 5, and I think you kind of mentioned that earlier. That kind of opened our eyes a little bit to Zane Trace. But yeah, Adina off to a 6-0 start. Just, I don't know if I would say took Huntington behind the woodshed, but kind of did. 3 sets, none of them got to 20 for Huntington, and it's a really impressive feat for Adina to get out to that 6-0 start after graduating a really good class last year. But as you mentioned, they've got some really talented players coming back. Katie Burns has been outstanding all season for them. Corinne Day's done a really good job for them as well. So it's a team that they've got some hitters at the net. They do a great job defensively. Coach Smith's teams always play outstanding defense, especially in the back. I too wouldn't be surprised if they went undefeated in the league. They do have to go to Huntington, then to Southeastern, Zane Trace, as we saw them, really handle Unioto pretty well. So I think the SVC kind of up for grabs. Westfall beat Zane Trace, I believe, in 3 on Tuesday. I'm going to it real quick. Yeah, beat them pretty easily in 3 on Tuesday. So even though they're off to a 4-6 start, that's a Westfall team that, that's a Westfall team that could be, dangerous, especially up at the Dome. And, it's a very good league for volleyball, and we're seeing it again this year. And I'm interested to see where the teams go for the tournament, because volleyball is 7 divisions. So to see how many districts they can win with it being more spread out than what it has been in the past.
Do you want to go ahead and move on to the? I'll let you take the next one.
Yeah, we're gonna jump to soccer.
Here we go.
Let's go soccer.
Last Saturday.
Yeah, Saturday. I'll tell you what. If you've never been to something at Lynchburg-Clay, they got the dark gray basketball volleyball court, which I love. They've got a soccer. Well, of course they have soccer only because they don't have football, but they've got a really nice soccer, track, softball, baseball complex. It's a really nice area. There is no shade at all. I am shocked that I don't have the weirdest sunburns, because I usually get I got that, but that's from San Francisco. That's a little off color, but yeah. Saturday, as I'm sitting over there before games, I'm in the shade, and then all of a sudden I can just feel it pushing back, and it was going away. There's no coverage out there. So get out there. It was a matchup between 2 teams with 1 loss, with Wheelersburg boys and Lynchburg-Clay boys, and it was kind of what you expect. The Pirates are able to score early. One big thing for them, which I'll talk about, in the next thing, is Braden Bird was back for the first time. Caleb Parton played goalie for them through their first few contests, and this is Bird's first time back. He's been a 3-year starter for them, only a junior. Just, really helps them stay organized defensively. Parton did a really good job for them. I mean, they only have the 1 loss, but Bird did a good job of leading the defense throughout the game. They get an early goal. Nick Sylvia scores on a header from Carter Rollins, and they get out to that 1-goal lead, and they held it throughout most of the game. And then things got just a bit crazy. With 8:20 left to play, and this is kind of important to listen to the timestamps on that. 8:20 left to play. Braden West scores for Lynchburg-Clay. Cody Bell brings it up the right side, makes a nice cross in kind of behind everybody, and just a pretty easy finish for West, but a good finish as well. 8:20 left to play. 1-1. With 8:03 left to play, Nick Sylvia for Wheelersburg gets fouled in the penalty box, and he scores the penalty. Makes it 2-1.
2 goals for him now.
Yeah, huh?
I said 2 goals for him now.
Yeah. So 8:20, then 8:03, and then with 7:54 to play, Carter Rollins gets a steal. He saw, if you heard his interview, he said he saw what they did on their passes back on the kickoffs. They passed it back. He goes, steals it, sees the goalie is standing outside the box, chips him, and scores 9 seconds after the previous goal. So it seemed like the game was ripped away from Wheelersburg with 8:20 left to play, and 26 seconds later, they're up 2 goals. It was nuts. And I'm writing down the scoring and how Sylvia scored his penalty, where he went on it. And then I just hear the Wheelersburg fans going crazy because Rollins made just a great individual play. It's just a really good game overall. It's a long bus trip for Wheelersburg, but it's worth it to be able to play teams like that. Wheelersburg is going to be Division 4. Lynchburg's going to be Division 5. Division 5 is going to be a nightmare.
Wait, so did they re-division in soccer too? Man.
And everything. Oh, you're going to hate it.
This stuff, God.
You're going to hate it.
We're not doing the March Madness brackets this year just because we need 18 pieces of paper. And that was lucky that
I even had that last year. So
Yeah.
that was it was a very good game. It was fun to get there. The crowd got a little into it at the end. I thought it was a pretty well officiated game. Lynchburg was a little more physical, and really, typically if a school doesn't have football, even if the team, it's not saying the team's dirty at all, they're just physical, because you have kids that would probably play football that aren't, and that they're just naturally more physical.
Well, you talked a lot last year how, Caleb Lewis and some of those dudes over at Northwest, it's like, these dudes should play football, be like middle linebacker.
Yeah.
These dudes are more physical than some of their guys they have on the football field. But, that's why Northwest had a really good soccer program and had a really good basketball season last year, too, because both of the, what was it? It was Caleb Lewis and what's the other name I'm leaving out for? I know we say
Jay Jenkins.
Yeah, Jay Jenkins. Some of those dudes, you can just see they're filled out, and you would figure they play football, but play soccer instead, extremely good at it, and that's why they had a successful year last year.
Yeah, it's a sport where you can be more physical, but you got to do it in a certain way, and that kind of benefits some of those teams. Like we've seen Eastern Brown's been really good at soccer in the past without football as well, and South Webster is another one that doesn't have football. That you get those kids out and you could be successful, and that's kind of what we're going to talk about here in a second as well.
Yeah, we can go ahead and move on to our previews coming up this week in the soccer ball and volleyball landscapes. We got a lot to talk about.
Yeah,
and, we'll kick it off with Wheelersburg and South Webster on the pitch this Tuesday.
Yeah, on Tuesday. What time will this come out?
Tuesday at about 10 a.m.
10 a.m. So this will be about 7.5 hours later. We're going to be playing at South Webster. They don't have lights. It's a beautiful soccer-only facility, but no lights. So they play early there. And Wheelersburg at South Webster. For South Webster, if they want a chance to stay within the SOC race, they must win. They must protect their home field. And they have a couple of 2-1 losses, which I think was kind of surprising because they made it to the Elite Eight last year. They returned a lot of players from last season's team. And just overall, they've maybe been slightly disappointing with how their start. I mean, 5-2-1, the 2 1-goal losses. It's a not the ideal start for Southwestern, but the good thing for them, they have Wheelersburg and Minford both at home. So if they protect their home field and then Wheelersburg would take care of Minford, we could have a 3-way tie and what I believe might be a 5-team league. So would be pretty crazy in that aspect as well. But if you're really looking at South Webster, they've got a guy like Hunter Bernard that can really fill up the goal. You are just giggling like crazy. Now I know they made a goalie change last year with Sam Odegaard stepped in for them in the tournament and did a great job for them. So maybe they're having some changes there. It's just they're a team. They've got kids that have had a lot of success in different sports. I mean, they got to the regionals in basketball as well with a lot of these same guys. And, I'm excited to see this. This is maybe the first time seeing South Webster in person. For Wheelersburg, led by Nick Sylvia, 20 goals so far in the season in only 8 games. He's outstanding. He can really do it in a variety of ways. Evan Mitchell came over from Northwest, has been dynamic for them, leads them in assists. Carter Rollins, as I mentioned, had a really good game on Saturday. They've got some different cats and that can really can do a lot of things. Brody Wilburn does a good job of spreading the field as well. It's a team that it's hard to defend them in the attack, and especially for all 80 minutes. Now, Braden Bird being back in goal for Wheelersburg is a big advantage for them as well. I'll tell you what, now I know South Webster doesn't play, I don't think they're going to play JV tomorrow night, or tonight, I guess. Maybe they will afterwards, but I I know the Parton kid playing JV goalie is, after playing like 6 or 7 games, varsity goalie is just unfair for whoever Wheelersburg's got to play, because Lynchburg didn't have a chance on Saturday in that one half of the JV game. So I'm excited to get down there for that game. Should be a fun one. Not the only big matchup between Wheelersburg and South Webster on Tuesday.
Yep, South Webster and Wheelersburg play volleyball on Tuesday as well. And this is a South Webster team that graduated a lot, but they also had a lot coming back. The two big players that left, obviously, that we've talked a lot about are Addison Claxon. That's the one that's still there. Bella Claxon and
Skylar Zimmerman.
Yeah, and Skylar Zimmerman. I couldn't remember their names.
And now you're doing what I do.
Yeah. And then
you're getting older, bud.
I think Wheelersburg was one of those teams last season that we talked about having a bunch of young players, and a lot of those players are a year older now, and that's why they're out to an 8-1 start. They've looked really good. South Webster still unbeaten, 11-0, and it seems like South Webster, I'm sure they do this every year, but they've really challenged themselves in the non-conference. I mean, they took on 2 of the best out of the SVC. I'm sure they've taken on some other really good teams in like 3-set, like weekend kind of showcase like matchups. And, Mia Crum, Michaela Raynard, Sydney Kessler, and Addie Claxon are kind of the 4 big returners for them. It's Mia Crum and Michaela Raynard at the net, and then we've seen Addie Claxon do what she does as the libero for the Jeeps, and then with the graduation of Bella Claxon, it seems that Sydney Kessler has kind of stepped into that main setter role. We saw her kind of come into that secondary setter role behind Claxon a bit down the stretch last season. Now she's in that main role, averaging right around 10 per set, 375 through 11 matches. This is going to set the tone for the SOC 2, or I believe this is SOC 3 is volleyball.
3, yeah.
This will set the tone for that league's landscape to come throughout this year's season.
Yeah, it should be an outstanding matchup because it's 2 schools that have a lot of experience winning. As we mentioned, I will say when these teams play in every sport, their crowds are usually pretty nuts. So these 2 playing at 2 different places is going to make the crowds a little less exciting. But I would say because there's a chance of rain on Tuesday, that it'll probably be more exciting inside because people don't like getting rained on. Yeah, boy, we'll be there probably getting rained on.
There we go.
But yeah, Gracie Perkins, 147 kills for Wheelersburg, 4.1 a set. Grace Woodward, 105 kills, 138 digs. She's been really good all around. So is Alyssa Mullins, 85 kills and 126 digs. Ella Chamberlain with almost 300 assists on the year, averaging 8.2 per set. So, I mean, they're a team that can attack in a variety of ways, just like South Webster. And I think that was one of the big things for South Webster last year was how many different people they had that could attack. And, they've been carrying that over this year, and that's why they're off to that 11-0 start.
Another volleyball game we'll talk about coming up a little bit later on in the week this Thursday. Fairfield Union and Logan Elm. This is the second time they've met up this season. Fairfield Union 12-2, Logan Elm 7-4 overall. The last time they met was a little less than a month ago on August 27th. It was a 5-set win for Fairfield Union. Now, this matchup is not quite it's not gonna be quite the same as the first time around, as we've found out that Claire King going to be out for the rest of the season. That was the number 1 outside hitter for the
Braves.
For the Braves, I about said Tigers. For the Braves, so that was a big loss for them. There's going to have to be some other players like Eliana Hutchinson, Addison Smith, Adeline Smith, and Kennedy Groff are going to have to step up in her. And I think this will be, so they play Tuesday against Liberty Union, so the game Thursday will be, I think, the second game without her. These are the first stretch. Well, actually, I think she missed a few.
Yeah, because
she was like
she
6 sets behind.
Yeah, so this is probably their 3rd or 4th game without her. So, never ideal. The positive for King, she's only a junior, so she'll have another year to come back and play. But also, whenever you're facing Christian Thompson, you've got to be elite everywhere to be able to knock off, the Falcons. But with the Falcons, they are, not super one-dimensional because Molly Brown's been really good, as you mentioned. But they have, a lot of the attack is going to go through Christian Thompson, as it should. She's going to OU for a reason, and she's going to play pretty early, if not immediately, for a reason, because she's big, strong, powerful, great timing, and it makes them really hard to stop.
I think last year it may have been a toss-up between her and Claxon. Is it safe to say now that Christian Thompson is the best volleyball player in our area?
I would say
in
so.
Our coverage area.
The only thing I will say,
best outside hitter anyway.
Well, what I was going to also say, Adina's Katie Burns has been unbelievable this year, and she does it all around as well. So I think it is Thompson, but I think next year it's going to be pretty decisively Katie Burns.
I was going to say she's only a junior.
Yeah,
she's been doing it since she was a freshman, I believe. So
we're really blessed in our area to have some really high-level volleyball players and some really good coaches as well. And and a lot of that, I don't love the AAU basketball circuit. I think travel baseball is kind of a disaster at this point, especially in our area. Like you have 85 teams. You're gonna have a variety of coaching abilities, but we've got like 3 or 4 like volleyball clubs that just do things the right way, and that's why volleyball in the Southeast District is so good, is because you've got the best players playing, and then when they get done, they come back and coach.
Right.
And that's why you see some of these teams that when you hear that some of these players are playing club volleyball in the area, it's not like, oh man, they should go to Columbus or whatever. Like, no, you're playing high quality.
Right.
Like you're getting really good coaching across the board. So I think that's one of the big reasons why we see such a high level of volleyball in our area.
And you look to the setting for both of these teams. For Fairfield Union, I was talking with Shane. I guess sometimes it's a 4-2, sometimes it's a 6-2 or whatever. But for Fairfield Union, they're running 2 setters out there, and Peyton Reimer and Adeline Wolf. They both have exactly 330 assists, both averaging 9.2 per set. And for Circleville, they seemingly have a main one in Hannah Rhodes. She's at 236 with 6.7 assists per set. But Kiana Ingram also has 88 assists. We've talked a lot about her in the winter for the Braves girls basketball team. She's at 2.5 per set, so it seems like maybe when she rotates in, she potentially is in that setting role, maybe just for one rotation or whatever it may be. But Hannah Rhodes definitely the lead setter for them, but as we mentioned, Ingram definitely gets in the mix. So we'll see how Circleville fares against a very good Fairfield Union team without, as we said, their lead hitter in Claire King.
Logan Elm.
Or what did I say?
I said Circleville. It's all right. You typed it in.
Yeah, there's so many teams on here. We'll see how Logan Elm fares without their top hitter in Claire King. So
yeah, and then the last thing it'll be going on when we're taping next week. So we won't be able to really talk about it. We might be able to say like, oh, here's what happened in the final score. But next Monday, big volleyball match. North Adams, who currently is 12-0, I would be shocked if they weren't 14-0 by the time they go to Portsmouth Notre Dame next Monday, who is 6-2. I would guess that we will have someone there covering that game, but
I doubt
can't guarantee it. It's a big one because North Adams is kind of cruising through the shack, and this is a big chance for them to show how good they are in the non-conference as well. Caitlin Borger is 202 kills, 5.2 set. She racks up a lot of aces. They're a very aggressive serving team. And, she plays all around. She does a great job for them. She's one of the top players in our area as well. Natalie Reagan, who already set their school record for career assists, only a junior. She's got 402 assists this year.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
We're not even halfway through this. Well, we're probably right at the halfway point.
But yeah, it's just like they're a very good team. The Shack, if there's one sport they're not really good at, it's volleyball. But don't hold that against North Adams because they're an outstanding team, and they got a chance to prove it on Monday. They are going to take on Brianna Hicks, Macy Ford, some really good Titans players all across the board. It's for show going to be a tough matchup for for the Green Devils.
Remember last year when I picked Fayetteville Perry to win and they finished like second to last?
Yeah, that's why we didn't do it this year.
Oh, that was great. I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, unless you have anything extra to add, the Monday Night Football game going on right now between the Eagles and Falcons.
A lot of birds.
Both of our MLB teams are in shambles. Yours maybe a little less than mine.
They're beating.
You got an outside chance.
Yeah, they're technically beating who I would say is my second favorite team right now, 9-2. The A's.
Oh, okay.
I love the A's. Lawrence Butler is a dude. Brent Rooker kills the ball.
What's that one guy's name? Like Marjur Andahar or something? It's Andahar is his last name.
He played for the Yankees and Pirates.
I don't know.
Yeah. He's
JJ Bleday. There we go.
Yeah, JJ Bleday. Yeah.
What was it? It's
Brent Rooker.
How did it go? It was like Brent Rooker. It was like one
hits it hard, and it's out of here.
The one was like JJ Bleday's favorite color is green trees or something.
No, green trees was the.
Oh, that was the college.
That was the college one. That was the James Madison.
There was one. It was in Colorado.
It was bad,
Brent Rooker was like Rooker with a swing and a drive. This one has a chance, and like hit off the scoreboard. It was like 460. It was like it has a chance to leave the stadium.
Yeah,
there was one that was bad, and I can't remember what it was.
Well,
now.
but then it got to where like could sometimes it sounded like
it was AI. Sometimes
yeah,
and there were some that weren't though.
Yeah, early in the season it was definitely not AI. I've heard it's better now, but I mean the stadium's a dump, but I loved it. I mean Ricky Henderson's probably my favorite all-time non-Cub. So
you have a Ricky jersey.
I got a Ricky jersey, which I didn't wear to the stadium, of course, because I'm a dum-dum.
Yeah, that was a waste.
Well, I thought it was going to be so cold. It was not cold.
Was it cold in San Fran?
No. It was 66, 68, but sunny the whole time. It was nice. But yeah, I'm a big athletics fan. I hope they keep the name. Sacramento Athletics sounds terrible, but yeah, keep the elephant.
Sacramento Queens. Well, I guess Sacramento Princes. I don't know.
It could be. They could do
the Jokers.
Yeah.
Or the Aces. I don't know. I guess already.
Yeah, it's probably gonna have to be the Athletics. Do you know why they have an elephant as their mascot?
I didn't know they did.
Yeah, that's
his name like Toto or something. Or no,
I assume it's like Toney, but. No, it was it was because when the A's became a team in Philadelphia in the early 1900s, they were taking the best players to the American League from the National League. Like that was the only way players could get signed otherwise. And the Giants manager and owner John McGraw made some like disparaging remark in a newspaper about how they're like white elephants. And so then they played in like the second World Series and they presented them with like a porcelain elephant. And I guess he posed with it and smiled. So it was like, but they've used it ever since.
Yeah. I mean, it sucks. I mean, the stadium is like awful, but at the same time, it's like historically cool.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, I mean, they won 4 World Series in there.
They didn't win 6 because they couldn't handle the Red Legs, but
yeah,
haven't won a World Series in 35 years.
You were almost alive then.
No, I wasn't. I wasn't even alive the last time they won a series. I've said it a bunch. The Reds are 2. Let's see. I think they're 2-9 in playoff games in my life. I think that's right. So it was 4-10, 5-11. So that's 9, and then 2-10.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, the Cubs currently have 6 top 100 players in the minors. They're all in AAA, and they have literally no spots for them next year. So, yay, they get to be 3 games over 500 again next year. But Pete Crow Armstrong's awesome. He's fun.
He can run around.
He's fast. Hey, at least our 2 favorite teams have really fun players.
That is 22. True. I would say this year wasn't quite as fun as last year, but it had its moments.
Well, because you had expectations. We have expectations. Yeah.
I think if this season happened last year, it would be remembered as being as fun. Although, I don't know. Last year, we were in first place for like a week or 2.
But also...
And we were in first place and had like 6 out of 7 series against teams under 500. Like, we had it. But, we're bad, so...
Well, but you also had those guys that were good last year get hurt this year. So, not having McClain.
I don't know if he's really that good, I'll be honest.
I don't either, but
I'm not sold on him. But, he's not there. So.
Yeah.
Didn't have Ian Jabot. That hurt us.
On
a rehab
I
assignment.
can't believe that did. Is he on rehab or something?
Nope.
I hope he gets 2 games in.
And a cheeseburger. God, he's a big dude.
Yeah, Dodgers and Braves close 9-0 right now.
All right, well, it's about halftime of the Monday night game. I kind of want to watch the second half, so I think we'll wrap it up here from Studio 33 or whatever. Be on the lookout.
McGillicuddy.
Whatever, it doesn't matter.
It's
not sponsored.
McGillicuddles. That's what he should call it. When you start to cuddle with the puppies.
Start make like little pillow pet things.
Yeah.
McGillicuddles. There you go.
Oh, that's actually a good idea.
Yeah, I know. All right, be on the lookout for some games this week. Could potentially have a volleyball live stream later on this week. We'll see. Just be on the lookout on Facebook. We'll just say it would be on Thursday if it happens. So
yeah,
be on the lookout for that. Piketon at Zane Trace this Friday, also live streamed, obviously. More articles, pictures, interviews, and whatnot to come on the website at sosaohio.com. Next episode of Overtime, episode 45, will come out next Monday, where we'll talk about all of the week 5 action, previewing week 6. So,
yes, sir.
Yeah. I'll be off this week, be back next week, and hopefully for the rest of the season. Shouldn't have any more.
Shouldn't have any more weddings.
No, shouldn't have any more weddings, shouldn't have any more bachelor trips. We should be all good to go. So, all right, well, get out, watch some games. If you can't, just watch it on our YouTube channel because we love to support.
Yes.
But that'll do it for this week's episode of SOSA Overtime, presented by Perfection.